This specific oaky bourbon, it's like a tree hug in a glass, right?
Okay.
And it's also, another thing that comes to my mind is, like, why not drink your furniture, right? You get it?
You hate oaky bourbon. It's just like you're just coming out. Like,
I'm not a huge fan.
Yo, welcome in to the show. I'm Ryan O'Leary.
And I'm Mike Zika.
And this is the Bourbon Playbook, episode number 6 of this finely produced podcast from my basement. After this one, we'll have a 6-pack of episodes in the books.
Hey.
I feel like, Zika, every time we come down here to record at this point, the more we do it, the more it flows, the better we get, right? It's like taking out the E.H. Taylor small batch.
Yes. Oof.
And it's like opening that thing for 6 months, right? Letting it sit. It gets better with age, right? It gets better with age. I feel like that's what the pod's been so far.
Like a fine wine or bourbon.
Yeah, exactly.
How you look at it.
The Colonel, man.
Yes.
That was actually our bourbon of the week for episode 5, but that was some good stuff. We have 5 bottles on the shelf now. Yeah. 5 bottles on the shelf.
Soon to be 6.
Soon to be 6. We'll get into that. Here's the 5 on the shelf. I got a question for you, right? Heaven Hill 7, bottled in bond. Wild Turkey, the single barrel. Michter small batch. 1792, the full proof, 125. And then last week's was the Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. So you're stuck on a deserted island, Zika. You're Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Wilson! I'm sorry! I'm sorry, Wilson! Wilson, I'm sorry!
We've all seen that movie.
Wilson.
You could only one of those 5 whiskey bottles, Zika, washes up on shore. Which one are you picking?
E.H. Taylor.
Oh, you didn't even like hesitate.
Come on, no. It's not even close. Honestly, I'm excited to break out several different bourbons in the Buffalo Trace distillery line, and E.H. Taylor is one that I've been holding back on. There's several more, but yeah, that's a hands down for me, no question.
All right, so if I ask myself the same question, I'd probably go with the 1792. It's not because that's been my favorite bourbon, but I'm stuck on a deserted island, right? And I'm not. I'm not Tom Hanks. Like, I couldn't sit out there for a year and survive, so I would just continually put myself back in the body bag with the 125. I'm just not that guy that you want to be stuck with on a deserted island like Hanks. Like it just wouldn't work out for me.
And that would be my number 2 for sure. I mean, that's a fantastic store pick from Lakeville. Great high proof bourbon, lots of character, long finish. Yeah, I mean that's a great bourbon as well. Plus, I mean, you waking up in a casket in a body bag on an island, where who knows what's gonna eat you or tear away your flesh. I mean, that's not a bad choice, right?
No, that's a good one. So the Colonel Taylor small batch, Zika's favorite so far. That's episode 5. Go check that one out if you haven't already. Well, don't go right now though. Just listen to this episode first, then go back and listen to that one and tell your friends. Right, spread the word. We're about to have, again, a 6-pack of episodes done, which is exciting since we usually consume a 6-pack while we record while we record down here. And what better way to get into our pour of the week, Zika? What do you got?
I don't have to think about this one too hard, Ryan. I have a feeling you probably know where I'm going with this.
Are you going Vikings again? Yeah, they're 4-0.
I'm sorry, man, but here's the thing. I really didn't want to kick it off with the Vikings again for pour of the week. But, I mean, you got the 4-0 Vikes taking down the division rival, the Green Bay Packers.
Listen, there's no big secret to winning football. It's just doing what these guys do every game. Just go out and give it your best. Bottom line, I took a team to a Super Bowl and we won. I even had some guys on that team that nobody wanted. But we were a team. And that's what you guys are. You're a football team. That's kind of like a family, except you get to hit each other. But you have to stick together. Do that, you'll be fine.
Mind you, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a cheesehead from Wisconsin, right? To see the Vikings come out the first half at least and just obliterate the Green Bay Packers was fantastic, man. I grew up from D-Town, so D-Town, Durand, Wisconsin, small town, right? I was one of like 4 individuals that was an actual Minnesota Vikings fan. And this was the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers era. The only good season was 98. And then I believe it was 2009 when Favre came back for the Vikes and beat the Packers both division games, which was fantastic. So I grew up in that small town in Wisconsin, like a redheaded stepchild. And it was honestly like I was the only vegan at a barbecue joint. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. I grew up with thick skin, and to see this come to fruition this year, to be 4-0, take down a division rival. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right?
My favorite thing, though, as I'm getting to know Vikings fans out here, I'm a transplant Minnesotan. I moved here from the East Coast, and you leave out the part where Favre throws the back-breaking interception in the playoffs that just rip your soul
ran
out.
For the first.
Brett Favre goes back to pass. He pumps. Now he fires over the middle. Intercepted. I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. It was intercepted by Tracy Porter, near side to the 40, and John Sullivan runs him down at the 47-yard line. You've got to be kidding me. I can't believe what I just saw.
Looking at that play, he should have just held on to it, Paul. He should have. He could have easily gotten 5 or 6 yards if he would have just pulled that thing down and dove forward.
But why do you even ponder passing? I mean, you can take a knee and try a 56-yard field goal. This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
You stop yourself from going there, and you're just like, man, it was a great season. And that is just that's so Minnesota Vikings of you. So, yeah, I mean, right. So right now it's just like, how would you describe the fan base? I mean, obviously the NFL season is at a different point in terms of when this episode's going to launch, right? So we're saying that wholeheartedly. We're talking on October 2nd right now. But give me like the pulse of a Vikings fan at 4-0 with Sam Darnold at quarterback, right? I think for me, I'm waiting for the bottom to fall out. You know, I'm already waiting for it. I'm like, is it going to happen this week?
Well, folks, Mama's wrong again.
No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. Mama's right.
But you guys seem pretty optimistic as I look across at you right now.
Hey, man, after you shit on my parade like that in the 09 season and the start to this season, I don't know. You can't make you happy. I get you have how many rings, what, with Brady? 5, 6, 10, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Let's go!
Because I live in the moment, right? I'm in the present, and I look towards the future.
Like a dog, right? You don't think about the past. You live in the moment. You're always in the present.
Literally, physically, and mentally. Ask my wife. And honestly, the pulse, 140 over 80, it's electric right now. I mean, I just went for I was taking out the pups here a little bit ago before I came over, ran into a neighbor talking about football. I mean, it's fantastic. Everybody's talking about it. And it's positive, right? It's not like, disappointed since 1968 or whenever the Vikings, or 69, whenever they, became a team. But it's like talking about the future and how, we have not only one of the best defenses in the league, but a promising quarterback, one of the best D coordinators. I saw a stat that the Vikings are number 1 in several categories, from like total offense, defensive, like sacks, tackles, across the board. And then not only that, but they're like the top 5 team in the league when it comes to takeaways. And so, I mean, there's so many stats out there that are pointing to the Vikings being that potential, let's be honest, Super
Don't say
Bowl
it. Oh, here it is.
contender.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just excited for the path ahead, man.
Yeah.
I can't be more excited.
It's sweet. The Vikings they're on fire. So it's really fun. Speaking of sipping the Kool-Aid, went to a boys trip in Austin, Texas this past weekend. Actually saw Arch Manning
Yes.
and the number 1 nationally ranked Texas Longhorns play Mississippi State. My first ever big college football game. I'd never bet. I mean, I grew up, an hour north of Boston. Not a lot of college football out there. It was really during the Patriots' heyday too, Belichick, Brady. So when I grew up, it was all NFL. It wasn't really college football, right? So I didn't have a college team. I went to UNH, the University of New Hampshire. Like it's Division I, but it's not. It's like the next tier. It's that thing. So I'd never been to a real college football game. I'd never been to Ohio State, Michigan. I'd never been to anything like that. So to go and see the Longhorns randomly when they're number 1 in the country was pretty sweet. Days later here, still coughing up dust a little bit. Had about 100 Pacificos and Coors Lights over the course of that weekend.
Got to.
On top of like random margaritas and shots of whiskey. So I'm in detox mode over here. The hair of the dog's helping the cause a little bit. But this is kind of an interesting story, and I'll get to why I needed a bourbon on this weekend. I met a group of dudes out there, and I only knew one guy in the group. It's a random group of guys that I met through one of my wife's friends. It was my wife's good friend's husband from one of her homegirls, and he was telling me about how they go to this college football game every year. They went to Michigan State one year. They went to Purdue. They have all these stories about Purdue. Like going to the Purdue football game. I'm like, what? So I was like, all right, well, where are you guys going this year? And they say they're going to Austin. And I was like, well, I got a bunch of homeboys that live there. My brother lives outside of Austin. So I don't want to say I invited myself over, but I made it clear like, hey, I would like to be invited to this. So, we get there, party on Friday all night, get up early Saturday, go to a tailgate, party, go to the game, which was amazing, by the way. Like,
I saw the stadium.
100,000 people. Man. Yeah, 100,000 people in that stadium.
Texas football, man.
It was the best. The atmosphere pre, during, and post was amazing. Get out of the game, go back to the tailgate, drink some more. Right? There was like a random concert that broke out. Fall Out Boy cover band. Yeah. It was amazing. I was in heaven. Playing like random Newfound Glory songs and shit. It was
there you go.
I was watching like college age girls dancing. I'm like, you don't fucking know what the hell they're singing right now. You have no idea what band this is. Yeah. But for me, it was like I was back in high school. It's great. And then we go out for dinner. We're drinking some more. So I meet up with my brother. He actually came to the game. Met up with some other buddies. Going wild in Austin. It's like midnight. I'm half alive at this point at midnight, right? It's just like I'm not built like to drink all day day after day and just not stop drinking. And that's what this weekend was. Don't know if I could do it again. Honestly, it was a lot. Again, still in detox mode. But it's midnight and my brother lives like 40 minutes away, and it's like it's time to get in an Uber and go back. So me and my brother get in the Uber. We get to his house. He starts puking in his bathroom, right?
Oh, no.
I'm giving him shit.
No.
Start
As an older brother should.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I bring my shit into his guest room, look at my Apple Watch and see just the worst sight of my life. It instantly sobered me up. You have any guesses? Phone left behind. So my phone is in the Uber, which is, again, 40 minutes from Austin, and he's probably halfway back to Austin at this point, right? I mean, you know what I mean?
Incoherent,
right?
You.
So I need my brother's phone because he actually paid for the Uber, which was the best news. So we need to now go in through my brother's phone and contact this Uber driver and get his ass back to the house because I can't survive without my phone, right?
Right.
I'm typical millennial. I can't survive without my phone. So I literally opened the bathroom door. I'm like, oh, you're not feeling good, bro? Oh, give me your phone. Help me get my phone's gone. Help. And he's like, dude, what? He's like puking. He feels awful. I'm like, I don't care if you're puking. Turn on the Uber app and figure out how to get this freaking dude back to the house.
Yeah.
By the time we finally got Uber to contact the driver and then he called us, I could barely understand the dude. He spoke like a different, his accent was super thick. I could not understand him. I'm like, bro, you need to bring my phone to my house. Like you got to bring your phone back to the house that you were just at. And he's like, yeah, I just got home. Like I can't. I'm like, okay, how much is it going to cost for you to bring my phone back?
That's
and
what he was looking for.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, I don't know. And so I'm like, I'm like, all right, how's I'm doing math in my head and I'm still wrecked here, right? So I'm not thinking coherently. And I'm like
6 slices of pizza plus 4 beers.
What's the first? Like you're a negotiator, right? Yeah. Like what's the first number you would throw out?
I would throw out half of what I paid him to get me from point A to point B.
Yeah. So I don't know what that number was, but I offered him $60, which I thought was a pretty damn good offer considering he probably drove like a half hour or something to his phone.
Remember,
he was saying
two ways too.
He was saying it was 80 miles, which was bullshit, by the way. Yeah. After I found out where my phone was the next morning when we pinged it, I knew where his house was and it was not 80 miles away. But anyway, I offer him $60. He's like, no, I can't do that. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? I'm like, all right, $100. I'll give you $100. I'll give it to you Venmo. You know what I mean? I won't even do it through the app. Just bring my phone back to me. I need my phone. Like I'm traveling home on Monday. I can't be without my phone. Like I was freaking out, like almost in tears, like a 12-year-old girl. I need my phone. And he wouldn't do it for $100. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. I'm not paying you more than that. You know, like, that's ridiculous. Right. I thought I made a really reasonable offer to Soltar, whatever his name was. I think his name was Soltar. I'm like, all right, Soltar, that's fucked up. Like I guess you're just going to try to keep my phone or something. And he goes, I'll bring it to you tomorrow evening. And I have like an early flight the next day. So I'm like,
right.
All right. Like that freaks me out. I want to know exactly what time you're bringing it. And he's like, tomorrow evening. I'm like, dude, I was so pissed. Long story short, Soltar did bring the phone back.
Let's go,
but we
Soltar.
pinged it. We knew where it was. We texted him the next morning and said, bro, bring my phone back or we're coming to your house. And it's fine. We'll come to your house or meet you somewhere, but we're coming in an hour if we don't hear from you. And he texted us back and said, I'll bring it by 3:30. And he did. Good for him. And I tipped him $40 on the app.
I was just going to say, what was the damage?
I didn't want to, but he it was part of the deal a little bit. He was like, if you give me a tip, I'll bring it back. And I was like, okay, bring my fucking phone back, dude.
Fair.
And he did. So yeah, I needed a bourbon on Saturday night during this ordeal. I was freaking out, but I was way too hammered, so I ended up, I think I fell asleep with my laptop open trying to figure out my Apple ID so I could like get into it on my laptop and like track my phone. But my wife was able to track it for me from home the next day. So it was fine.
She loved that.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did.
So proud of you.
She's
Ryan.
like, you're just being a respectful and normal human being out in Austin, aren't you?
Responsible.
Yeah, responsible. That's the word. Yeah, no, you're just pissed drunk losing your phone in an Uber. Yep, that's basically it.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I like basically fell asleep on top of my computer trying to log into my Apple ID. Couldn't figure out the password. Was just like doing that for hours until I fell asleep. The next day, so upset not having my phone till 3:30, but I survived. So again, the deserted island. With no phone service, forget it. I'm just a dead man. Give me the 1792 up there on the shelf. That's what I would need. I was useless until I had my phone back, and then like my mood change was like instant. I just felt like a new man when I got it back. So
dopamine rush, man.
Shout out to Soltar bringing my phone back, but you're kind of an asshole for holding on to it and not taking that $100 I offered you.
Yeah,
and that's the pour it out for Soltar for bringing the phone back.
All right, Soltar, this one's for you, buddy. I finally picked something out that you like. This is for you, Ryan.
Now, I don't know why you're saying that because I don't know what I like. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still trying to figure out what I like.
Today, we have a special one. And like I said, I know you're an Okie guy. I'm a sweet guy. You think you're an Okie guy, right? That's kind of your past tense. That's where you come from. But what do we live in, Ryan?
The present, like a dog.
Exactly. Like a dog.
Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Okay, so this is adorable. You brought this because you think I like oaky bourbons.
It made me think of two things. It made me think of this specific oaky bourbon. It's like a tree hug in a glass, right?
Okay.
And it's also another thing that comes to my mind is like, why not drink your furniture, right? You get it?
You hate oaky bourbon. I it's just like you're just coming out. Like,
I'm not a huge fan,
right?
If I'm being honest.
But we have to. But maybe this is because I did give you shit because we can't just do the bourbons that tickle your palate, right?
Very true. And to be fair, I had the bottle in front of you, in my bourbon cave for several years. So the bourbon that you're drinking is about 2.5 years old right now.
Oh, so you think it sucks? You don't want to drink it? It's been there for 3 years.
The funny thing is when I'd have people over and I'm like, what kind of bourbons do you like? Do you like the more sweeter bourbons, more oaky? Just kind of go over their palate and try to understand them a little bit more. And if they ever said, "Oh, I love really oaky bourbons," I'm like, "Awesome! Here's a great one you should try."
That I don't want.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm trying to get rid of it, right? And so I knew it's been sitting on my shelf for several years. And last night I was at Costco in Chaska here, and I saw they had one, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And the only reason I say that is because they just won the double gold medal in San Francisco World Spirits competition last year. And I'm like, maybe there's something I'm missing here. And as you drink bourbon, your palate develops over time, right? And so I bought that bottle and I cracked it open last night, the fresh bottle that I have over here. And I was like shocked. I was like, wow, this is fairly complex at a 90 proof. I think it's 90.4 proof, $45 to $50 price point. There's a lot going on in this bottle, and I truly appreciated it. And I was like, I'm now excited for this podcast. Like, I'm excited to kind of share a little bit about the history and get into it. So for me, it was a good experience as somebody that's, I know what I like, and to take a step outside of that and being like, hey, dumbass, why don't you take a look in the mirror and see if there's anything else out there that might
broaden your horizons.
Exactly. So that's kind of the direction we're going today. I'm excited to dive into this. Like I said, double gold medal at the San Fran World Spirits Competition. It's won numerous awards internationally, and even looking at the Ultimate Spirits Challenge Tasting Panel Magazine, 93, 95 points. It's definitely a bourbon that won't disappoint. So should we dive into it?
Yeah, let's definitely pop this open. So is this different from the Woodford Reserve that I would, that I'm used to? Because I don't know if I've ever had the Double Oaked before. Or is this like a different kind of line in the series, or is Woodford Reserve also like an oaky bourbon in your opinion?
Great question. And it is oaky in my opinion, but to get into the history of it, why don't we dive into that real quick, and then we'll dive into some of the taste. Is that fair?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome, dude. So just to give you some historical facts, right? I love to lead with this. It's kind of fun. It's interesting to know. So the brand was originally started in 1812. Known actually, instead of Woodford Reserve, it was known as the Old Oscar Pepper Distillery. It was the original distiller's name was Elijah Pepper, that passed it on to his son Oscar Pepper, hence the name. And then Woodford Reserve comes from Woodford County, Kentucky. Woodford, the county, and Reserve meaning high quality bourbon. So another funny case here of the Prohibition era, they were allowed to produce the whiskey for what purposes do you think?
Medicinal marijuana purposes. Yes. Just like last week.
Minus the marijuana. Exactly.
Medicinal whiskey.
Yes.
Medicinal whiskey.
Yes. So they continued operations as usual. But one of the cool things, Dr. James Crowe kind of became a pretty big figure in the bourbon history, specifically at Woodford, because he developed something called the sour mash process at the distillery, which, as we know, it's some of my favorite bourbon. Basically just means that it incorporates a portion of the mash from the previous fermentation, which means the sour mash, and then they combine that with the fresh grains, and it introduces kind of the lactic acid and stabilizes the fermentation and the pH level. So anyway, kind of a cool fact as well, James E. Pepper bourbon. If you're a bourbon connoisseur out there, it's that really cool barrel-proof decanter looking bourbon. I think it's about $55-$60 at your local Total Wine, but that was actually connected to the original Oscar Pepper distillery. And the history behind that is James E. Pepper, aka the bourbon that you see on the shelf, was the grandson of Oscar Pepper, the original owner of the distillery in 1812. So after Prohibition, the family kind of wanted to revive the legacy. And in 2008, they released that James E. Pepper bourbon that is in that sick decanter that I just got actually a couple months ago. So that's kind of a cool fact. Other than that, the double oak process, like what's so interesting? You're asking Woodford versus double oaked. What does that mean?
Yeah.
2012 master distiller Chris Morris introduced a double oak bourbon. I wanted to go over two things. First off, the process of how they kind of define their rich and complex flavor. And then the second thing is how they age it. The bourbon is aged in oak barrels, roughly about 6 to 7 years old. And then it kind of develops the flavors of that vanilla, that caramel, that oak that you typically see in most bourbons. But they do two different things. So after the maturation, they actually have a toasting process and then a charring process. And I actually didn't know this before I looked it up earlier. I was going to say, like,
what's the difference, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, toasting barrels is, it involves heating the barrel inside with infrared heat or steam, And then that basically opens up the wood grain and extracts the flavors, creating kind of a char layer, right? Versus the charring process where you literally take like a big heat torch, right? That you'd kill weeds on the side of the pavement. And
maybe you, because you're obsessed with edging your lawn in your driveway.
that is true. I'm a freak. I'm a freak, dude. It needs to be once a week, every Monday. Boom, boom, boom.
Love it.
But anyway, so this basically involves charring the inside of the barrel, and that caramelizes the wood sugars and forms charcoal, kind of enhancing that flavor. And so again, the toasting process is going to be infrared heat and steam, opening that wood grain and extracting the flavors. The charring process is to create that char layer from the burn to caramelize the wood and sugars from the charcoal and enhance those flavors. And that's barreled for an additional 9 to 12 months. So that's what gives it kind of the toast, light charring flavor that can get those complex flavors and like the dark chocolate and caramel and toasted oak that you're going to experience here in a minute. So
sweet dark chocolate. So it's going to be kind of a dessert bourbon.
Hey.
So double oaked it's that extra process of the toasting.
Exactly. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it goes from that 6 to 7 year barrel, and then they toast it, they char it, and then another 9 to 12 months, boom, you got Woodford Reserve Double Oaked barrel.
I just got to say, I think they fucked up with this Woodford Reserve. I mean, it got named after the county.
Lame, I know.
That's kind of lame. Like, I'm sorry, Old Oscar Pepper is kind of badass. Could you imagine the bottle like Old Oscar Pepper? Like, that would be a kind of a badass name for a bourbon. Like Woodford, I'm already like kind of down on Woodford now. Like, it was named after the county in Kentucky, and reserve means high quality bourbon. That's what you said. Like, I don't know about that one. I'm not buying that Woodford. So I didn't know Woodford was just the county in Kentucky that it was distilled in. That's a little disappointing.
Yeah, like zero creativity. All those brain cells went to the distillation process.
There you
Guarantee
go.
It is.
Right? It is a solid bourbon, though. I mean, Woodford always hits on the budget, right?
Yeah.
But all right, want to pop this open?
Let's do it. You got the nice forefinger over there. I respect.
I know
that,
this
sir.
one. This is a generous pour I gave myself. Usually, you pour it for me.
I do want you to try this one.
I have big fingers.
Yeah. Just trying to make the glass look bigger. Huh?
Yeah.
When you get finished with that 11 finger pour, I would like you to try this one, just because I think on the palate you're going to get more deep flavors, especially with the toasted oak and dark chocolate versus the bottle that's been open for
3 years. You said 3. Yeah. So quick question before we dive into this: with a bourbon, is waiting 2 to 3 years a good thing, right? I think for a beer, that would be skunked, right? So this bourbon is 3 years old.
Right.
Does the bourbon still hold up over years like that? I mean, if I was drinking this 6 months after you opened it versus 3 years, like, what's the difference there? Because I feel like 3 years, am I still going to get the same experience?
Yeah, great question. So that's why I bought the brand new bottle, is because I tried it last night, and then I went to Costco, popped the new bottle, and I went back and forth, and I'm like, yeah. So the oxidation is going to be a lot lower on this, and because of that, it's going to eliminate some of the flavor profile, especially over like 3 years. I think they always say the golden rule is like 1 to 2 years, right? That's why whenever I have a really nice bottle, I know that, okay, as soon as I pop this, I got 1 to 2 years before I'm going to have that oxidation, the loss of aromas, some other issues with just the overall quality and deterioration of the bourbon itself. I think personally, your bottle, it still tastes fairly well. It's definitely, it almost feels muted a little bit versus this one where, yes, the ethanol burn is a little bit higher, but the overall notes that I can taste on my palate and some of the characteristics of those dark chocolate notes and caramel and oak comes out, and it's right in your face. So okay. I'd be interested to see if you can tell the difference between these two when you're done with that 11 finger pour.
I was gonna say, well, I have another Glencairn here that I could put some of the new stuff in. Yeah, let's do that.
So on the nose, oh man, I get a lot of flavors I haven't had in a while.
Should I be smelling cherries?
Yeah, dark fruit. Lots of caramel.
I'm getting cherries.
Yeah, lots of dark fruit, caramel, maybe some honey, and definitely some malt or some chocolate. Especially like if you bury your nose even deeper in there and you can kind of fight that ethanol, you can really get into that kind of those chocolate, those darker malty notes. Let's give it a swish and a chew while we're at it.
It's crazy. I just did a chew as you're doing yours, and then tell me if this is legit or if I'm making this up because I'm drinking. I put my nose into the Glencairn, took a nice big inhale, didn't catch much. Like sweet, like I definitely got the cherries, but I didn't catch the chocolate. And then I did the Kentucky Chew, immediately put my nose back in the Glencairn, and then I really caught a nice whiff of chocolate.
Yeah.
Then it was like so not smelling it at all pre-Kentucky Chew, but then afterwards I definitely started picking up more. Is that just the way the brain works? Like once you get the bourbon into your mouth and you're swishing it around, right? And then you smell it, it's like you almost pick up something that you didn't know was there earlier, even though you're looking for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too is when you're smelling it, you're trying to smell for the aromas, keeping your nose farther away. I can get a lot of that fruit and the caramel almost and the honey. And then when I dive a little deeper, that's when I get those true malty chocolate notes. And yes, as soon as I take a sip, it hits my palate. It's that vanilla, that almost like the toasted oak that I mentioned earlier, and then some of that dark chocolate on the back end. So on the front end of my tongue, it's very sweet.
Very vanilla in the front.
Yeah.
I got that.
The vanilla kind of honey. And then as it moves back to the back of my palate and the sides of my tongue, I'm getting a lot of those malty chocolate notes with a long finish. I'm trying to find some like some fruit, some dark fruit, like you mentioned on the nose. There is definitely some kind of like some dark fruit or even apples on this.
It's definitely a long finish.
Yeah, long, warm, kind of creamy finish. I would consider this like a dessert pairing.
Same, yeah.
I know Jack Daniel's Bottle and Bond has another really good. They have a sour mash that I would say it's the same thing except a heavy brown sugar profile. This one is a very good dessert pairing after like a nice steak dinner. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. This is like when you grab that chocolatey stout beer, right? That you don't really drink that often, but maybe after a meal, you'll want one more, like a nightcap. I definitely think that this could be something, but this is a good bourbon, man.
Yeah.
I'm about to try the one you just cracked open now. Yeah. So this is the new one.
So remember, it's going to be a little hotter, but I think it's going to be a longer finish and you're going to be able to taste more notes.
It almost went down smoother.
Did it?
Yeah. It's probably because I've had quite a few swigs now.
Yeah, the fifth or sixth. That'll creep up on you.
Yeah, goes down well, man.
Yeah.
It's a solid bourbon.
I'm surprised how much I actually like this. Like I would actually recommend this to friends. Like for instance, some of my buddies, my cousin is like, hey man, if you're going to, purchase a couple bourbons to have in your stash, which ones would you purchase and why? This would be one that I would actually recommend, right? Outside of, your sweeter corn or wheat heavy bourbons. I always think it's important to have a heavy oak. Just because everybody's palate's different, this would be that bottle that I think would definitely be a big hit for somebody that loved an oaky bourbon or even didn't know a ton about bourbon, but knew that, the tasting notes were somewhat oaky and sweet and complex. This would be fantastic to have on your rail.
Do you think this is something that one of your bourbon buddies from your group would have on their shelf? Or would you encourage them to do that if they are like you and are super biased against oaky bourbons?
Short answer is no. Would they have it on their shelf? Probably not, because there'd be a lot of things to trump this specific bourbon. But is it something that they'd have in their cabinet? Absolutely. For when guys like you come over and they say, what kind of bourbon do you like?
So the shelf and the cabinet are two different things.
Yes.
Oh.
So the shelf is on display. The cabinet is something
so that's underneath
sleeping.
The bar.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's where you're going to have like your, for instance, your mixers or the budget blends that you'd be happy to disperse out to any guest that would come over to your house that maybe isn't a bourbon savant. So you will make the cut soon.
One day. Well, maybe a year from now.
I barely make the cut. I don't even know if I make the cut at their place.
Well, you haven't given me the invite yet, but I think right now I'm too intimidated.
Yeah.
Oh. I need a few more weeks of the pod before I'm ready. But that was a perfect segue, actually, Zika, to trying to fit the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked into the E5 scale. Where in the Essential 5 would the Woodford Double Oaked fall? Daily Dram? I don't think so. Not for me. I don't think it's Daily Dram.
No.
Impress my guess, it's probably not that fancy, right? This is not one that you're pulling out.
Not by the looks.
Yeah, this one seems pretty clear to me, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. This would be a budget blend. What are we spending on this bottle? 45 to 50?
Yep.
Ooh, is this a budget blend? Would this make a good old fashioned?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the oakier side, right? It's a 90 proof, right? So I prefer a little bit higher alcohol content. ABV,
of course you would.
But yeah,
of course you would.
Yeah, naturally. I mean, shit. Let's break down the 1792. Make a couple Manhattans.
Jesus,
let's go.
No, not after I've already had this many sips of the Woodford. Yeah, no, I'll be back in the body bag again, and we don't need that.
R.I.P. No, I think this one's absolutely a budget blend. I think you hit it on the head. It's kind of tough, though, because it's not, I hate to say it, but impress your guest is something where A, it's a good bourbon, B, it's typically a little lower proof, and C, it usually tastes really good, right? So that's kind of, again, that's why I kind of wanted to put that 1792 in there, just because, the decanter, it looks cool, it tastes fantastic, and it's a little bit more unique outside of the small batch. But the Woodford Reserve Double Oak, it doesn't give me any of that outside of the flavor itself. It doesn't look that cool, to be honest, but it does pack a punch, and it's very complex. And that's why I think it's potentially a fantastic budget blend. And why I think that is because when you make a Manhattan or an Old Fashioned, those are basically the only two cocktails I'm going to make, because those are the main ones that you're going to really taste that bourbon, the true characteristics of it. I kind of like the oaky flavor for some people, especially if they don't drink bourbon a ton. It's a 90 proof, so it's not too strong, but you hopefully still taste a few of those notes. And it might be something good with like chocolate bitters as well as orange bitters, right?
Yeah.
So you could have some fun with that in a cocktail, or Manhattan, Old Fashioned, doesn't matter. But also, it's something that I would love to make an Old Fashioned, and while I'm making that, pour myself a little 2 to 11 finger pour, depending on the occasion, and just sip on that myself. It's truly one of those where I really like and enjoy the taste, while I can also make cocktails with it. I think it's definitely a budget blend for me. So to wrap things up, just want to go over the mash bill real quick of Woodford Reserve Double Oaked.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so it actually has the same mash bill as a standard Woodford Reserve bourbon, which is 72% corn, kind of providing the sweetness, the classic bourbon flavor, 18% rye, the spiciness, complexity, and then 10% malted barley that contributes to the ultimate kind of smooth and nutty flavor. Just remember the two characteristics that make this very different is the double barrel aging. And that's the second stage of the process that lasts about 9 to 12 months that truly makes this bourbon what it is and extremely unique compared to any other bourbon, especially on the oaky side, that I've ever had.
And that is our deep dive into Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. This bourbon is smoother than a dad joke at a family reunion. Remember, folks, it's aged to perfection, so it's basically the senior citizen of bourbons with all the wisdom and none of the back pain.
So the next time you pour yourself a glass, just know that you're not just sipping whiskey, you're attending a masterclass in flavor.
Cheers.
Fucking cheers, bro. Cheers.